Wait, remember Brandy and Mr. Whiskers? It was a Disney Channel animated series that ran from August 21st, 2004 to August 25th, 2006, for a total of 2 seasons. It was a show that I originally passively watched when it was on. It was nothing too exciting for me back then to not miss every episode, but I watched a fair bit of it for sure. It had a fun premise, a solid theme song, but does it have everything to make me love it upon a rewatch? That's to be determined. But here for the Wait, Remember series, let's take a look into what this show was, some interesting info about it, what ultimately happened to it, and of course, my personal thoughts on it as well. This is the first video of 2022. So welcome to a whole new year of content. I have so many large projects in the works for the rest of the year, and I am thankful to have you all here with me. So, Brandy and Mr. Whiskers. What the heck is it all about? Well, Brandy and Mr. Whiskers shows the day-to-day struggles of a spoiled blonde dog named Brandy Harrington, of the Florida Harringtons, and an overly excited white-furred rabbit named Mr. Whiskers, thus the show's name. After the pair fall out of an airplane and get stranded in a remote part of the Amazon rainforest, the two do their best to survive and adapt to their life in their new surroundings while desperately looking for a way home. So, the narrative sounds interesting enough. Two polar opposites stranded in an unfamiliar location, and they're animals. What more could you want? You know, speaking of all this fur, it has me thinking about my own. Well, by that I mean my hair. Thanks to today's sponsor, Keeps. Keeps has been a big sponsor of the channel over the past several months, so a big thank you to you all, the audience, for supporting them. To refresh the minds of those returning or explain to those tuning in for the first time, Keeps is a subscription service, but not for content, for your hair, specifically to help you keep it. These are clinically proven treatments that combat the symptoms of hair loss. Keeps has plans that are more affordable, with them typically being half the cost of average prices, and you don't have to go anywhere. They come straight to your door. 2 out of 3 guys will experience some form of male pattern baldness by the time they are 35. The best way to prevent hair loss is to do something about it while you still have hair left. A licensed doctor will review your information online and recommend the right hair loss treatment plan for you. Any questions for them? Well, they're available 24/7 to help you. You get a full year of unlimited messaging with them, with most customers noticing results within 6 months of starting the treatment. So we eliminate 2 major things: the doctor's office and the pharmacy, which makes everything more convenient for you. You'll receive refill reminders, taking the worrisome task of remembering out of the way, so you'll never be left running low on the products needed to take care of your hair. With Keeps, hair loss stops here. Head over to keeps.com/JordanFringe or click the link in the description to receive 50% off your first order. That's keeps.com/JordanFringe. Thanks again to Keeps for sponsoring today's video. Brandy is an anthropomorphic dog who is stylized a lot like a stereotypical teenage girl, complete with a pink shirt, red pants, a collar, purple platform flip-flops, and a Valley Girl-like accent. We all personally know a Brandy. Prior to the start of Brandy and Mr. Whiskers, Brandy was the pet of a wealthy Florida couple who were traveling via airplane, with Brandy in the cargo hold to an exclusive foreign spa in the first episode. It was in this cargo hold that Brandy met Mr. Whiskers, a hyperactive, often dim-witted, and very silly rabbit. Not the type to eat your breakfast cereal, well, he might. Regardless, he dons an orange jumpsuit, the pinnacle of rabbit fashion back then. He was being flown to Paraguay, where he was to be sold at a zoo for 39 cents, as Brandy informs him of this after reading his order slip. Mr. Whiskers, while silly, is shown to have some intelligence at several points in the series, even occasionally using his intellect to save the pair from whatever sticky situation they had found themselves in. Most times, though, he's just a big old goofball. Mr. Whiskers is also shown to be viciously kind and friendly, despite Brandy clearly finding him, a lot of the time, extremely annoying, often ditching him or treating him lesser than her. Brandy, shortly after meeting Mr. Whiskers, made the mistake of telling him to turn on a light switch so that she can read her magazine better. And Mr. Whiskers, who, as it was established 2 minutes earlier in the episode, isn't great at reading, so he mistook the emergency exit as the light switch and sent him, Brandy, and all the cargo down into the jungle below. So whose fault is it really? Brandy for trusting the illiterate bunny rabbit, or Mr. Whiskers for actually doing the deed of pulling the wrong switch? The world may never know.
We'll be right back with Brandy and Mr. Whiskers.
Now let's get back to Brandy and Mr. Whiskers.
After landing in the Amazon, Brandy and Mr. Whiskers begin to integrate into the jungle society there, while also trying to make a temporary home for themselves as they await rescue. Yeah, that's gonna be a while. The pair manage to befriend a cast of unique local animals who help them adjust to their life in the jungle, including Lola Boa, a boa constrictor who works as the cast's voice of reason and later becomes Brandy's best friend. Cheryl and Meryl, oh sorry, that's a Pokemon, my bad. Ah, there we go. They are identical twin toucans, who are seemingly always together and always in the middle of a nasty fight. And Ed, an easygoing, friendly otter who later becomes Mr. Whiskers' best friend. Some of the other animals in the jungle quickly prove themselves to not be quite as friendly and as well-meaning to the pair, with this being especially true of Gaspard le Gecko, a vaguely French gecko for some reason in the Amazon. Gaspard is the series' main antagonist who is driven by his one sinister goal of eating Mr. Whiskers. Also, I've checked and I don't think geckos eat rabbits, but whatever, these animals also talk and wear clothes, so suspend disbelief. It's not their fault I watched too much Zaboomafoo as a kid for these Disney writers. Gaspard uses his monkey henchmen and his high intelligence to come up with schemes to fulfill his dark, gluttonous desire. My gluttonous desire is to be at Fogo de Chao 24/7, but you don't see me talking about it all the time, unless you ask my friends, which in that case, I do. Problems tend to change between individual episodes of Brandy and Mr. Whiskers, ranging anywhere from Brandy's latest attempt to call home to issues with jungle life to Gaspard's seemingly limitless schemes to eat Mr. Whiskers. Early on in the series, Brandy is cold and resentful of Mr. Whiskers, blaming him for their current situation, since he was the one who opened up the cargo hatch and sent them flying into the jungles. But again, that's a perspective for others to possibly see in a different light of it being her fault too, but that's neither here nor there. This tension in their relationship comes to a head when Gaspard offers a trade to Brandy, Mr. Whiskers, for a phone that she can use to call home. While initially Brandy goes for the trade, after making it she realizes that she has started to care for Mr. Whiskers and goes to rescue him, having to sacrifice that call and thus her way home in the process. This sacrifice for Brandy in many ways marks the point in the series when Brandy and Mr. Whiskers really start to become friends, bridging the differences in their personalities and backgrounds. Most of the first season of the show is centered around Brandy and Mr. Whiskers adjusting to their new, unexpected lives. This adjustment to their new jungle home includes such things as building a treehouse home out of the debris that fell down with them. This treehouse develops over the show, becoming better decorated and given a more homey feeling to it, eventually going as far as having an indoor bathroom during the second season. Now that's luxury, only the best for a Harrington. Brandy tries to make the jungle more civilized during the second season, making the best out of a bad situation by introducing concepts like fashion, hygiene, and the idea of currency through shiny rocks. Mr. Whiskers, for his part, spends most of his time imagining and making new inventions, most of which fail so spectacularly they become a new catastrophe for the jungle, which reminds me of that age-old advice my grandmother used to give me. If at first you don't succeed, make sure you fail so miserably that you threaten hundreds of acres of endangered wildlife. I'm kidding, she used to tell me to marry rich. Let's see how that's going. By the time the second season actually starts, Mr. Whiskers and especially Brandy's mark has been clearly made on the jungle. For one thing, the concept of a market economy controlled by the shiny currency rocks Brandy introduced in season 1 is now well established. Like everything could have been free, like the world was before we made things have monetary value, but yeah, shiny rocks. Also, it is shown in the first episode of the second season titled Get a Job, a shopping mall has been made in the jungle, complete with clothes and restaurants and a boy band called Sugar Toad. A bad Sugar Ray parody, maybe? Why not Sugar Manta Ray then? Well, you wouldn't find a manta ray in the Amazon. Then again, you wouldn't find a French gecko there either. You know what? Ignore logic. In the second season, Brandy and Mr. Whiskers are clearly shown to be more comfortable in their surroundings, having fallen into the life they have made for themselves, with Brandy noticeably less desperate to get back home. The show, however, ended after its second season with neither Brandy or Mr. Whiskers ever getting rescued. What a happy ending. Even if it did win a Daytime Emmy in 2005 for individual achievement in animation, it was canceled due to lower ratings. Brandy and Mr. Whiskers was created by sitcom writer Russell Marcus, with Marcus also working as a writer and executive producer for the show, with several of the writers on Brandy and Mr. Whiskers switching over to this show from the buzz on Maggie after that show had been canceled. While places like Disney Plus may not have this show available for streaming at this time, at least you can watch it on your Game Boy Advance with the Disney Channel Collection Volume 2 Game Boy Advance video cartridge, the true connoisseur's way of enjoying TV.
Up next, it's Brandy and that crazy Mr. Whiskers. The jungle's most unlikely pair on Disney Channel.
So while the show I don't think overall is too great, I still enjoyed my time with it. It can get a bit too much if you're marathoning through the series, but I did like a lot of what the show offered. There's great fourth wall breaks, colorful, vibrant animations, and by the end of it all, I cared about these two characters. I'm glad they took time to develop the characters, and with that, their environment throughout both seasons. I like seeing some growth in characters. Even if it's baby steps throughout the show, this odd pair, despite how everything started, ended up with a nice mutual respect for each other and their differences. That, however, doesn't mean that they still can't annoy each other, ruin each other's day, and even want each other to be eaten alive by something else in the jungle, but they managed to make it work. The problems for me, though, also fall on the characters when they aren't growing, or when they revert back to earlier states of attitude. Brandy is a lot to take in sometimes with how snobbish and self-obsessed she can be, and at the same time, Mr. Whiskers is his own brand of annoying, to a point where you really want to be doing anything else. As well as the jokes in the show, while there are some pretty good ones hidden in there, it's just, well, just that. They are buried far apart from one another with constant toilet humor or more immature humor that wasn't really up my alley. That's not to say you wouldn't enjoy it, and that's the beauty of being a fan of any sort of media. We all get to have our own tastes and opinions, so if you like it, go off, queen. So in that case, let me know in the comments how you feel about the show. Are you a fan of Rich Dog and Silly Bunny? I know this is pretty divisive between liking it or not, so I for sure wanted to hear from you. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this. Follow me on Twitter, or else I'll leave you in the jungle with a French gecko. I'll be back soon with a new video, but until then, later.